Hi. Well, so can you hear me? Great. Well, thanks everyone for attending. This is a really big audience that we have tonight. And of course, we have a great panel of experts. I'm really eager to start this meetup. So just a note, Tianyu, our speaker, she will be arriving soon. She's from Spotify, so we will expect her here to be in a few minutes. So, well, my name is Natalia. I'm part of the marketing team at Making Sense. Making Sense is a software development company with a strong focus on user experience. We help companies here in the Bay Area and all across the United States. We have our main development centers in Mexico and Argentina. That's where I am from, and Santi. So you can join us in any social media you use, either Twitter or LinkedIn. You will find as well in our social media the recap of this event and the pictures, so you can tag yourself there. We will just be uploading the video in a couple of days. So speaking of social media, we have created, because of the big audience that we have in all our meetups, a LinkedIn group, which is called UX Professionals in Silicon Valley. You can join us there. You will find our notice about user experience. You can share the articles that you consider interesting, and we want to create this UX community. Of course, that have already your QA LinkedIn code, so you can connect with each other. This is one of the main reasons we do these meetups, to connect with peers, professionals. So take advantage of that. So, well, let's start. I'm going to give the mic to Santi.
Hello, can you? Oh. Hello, can you hear me? At the back? Yeah. All right. You will notice we come from Argentina because of my accent, so I will do my best tonight. My name is Santiago Triviani. I'm head of UX at Making Sense. I've been working as a UX designer for the last 10 years. And I'm very happy to share the experience with this amazing panel. So we have here Ben Hester. Ben is product manager at Incrementally. And we have here also Melissa Schmidt. Melissa is the director of research at Autodesk. So join me, welcome Ben. All right, so let's start. The first question would be about yourself and your background. Tell us a little bit about what are you doing, where do you come from, and your experience in the field.
All right, great. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Nice to meet you. I am the director, as just as Santi said, of research at Autodesk for our digital platform and experience. And I've been there forever, for over 12 years, which I can hardly believe. And before that, I was also working as a researcher. So I've been in the field for over 15 years in research and design. And I started as an experienced researcher for one of our flagship products, which is AutoCAD. Has anyone heard of AutoCAD? Yes. Usually they know AutoCAD more than they know Autodesk. And so I moved up and became a research manager, and then over time I started to manage designers as well, and UX architects and service designers. And today I manage a team of about 12 researchers and optimization analysts, which is really fun because we get to do qualitative and quantitative research. So yeah, I'm really happy to share my experiences with you guys, my successes and failures, and answer questions.
And I'm Ben Hester, and I'm a design manager at Intuit. And I specifically work in the QuickBooks Self-Employed group there at Intuit. So focusing on a product we have really focused on people who don't know a lot about accounting, but we help empower them to run their businesses and get more out of their business. And I've only been there for a little bit. I'm pretty brand new there. I've worked in UX design for over 20 years, and I've been able to work on both sides of the table. So I've worked in-house at companies, but I've also worked at agencies as well. So both product design agencies as well as agencies focused on branding, marketing, innovation strategies. So I've really had a unique chance to be exposed to a ton of different projects and companies and methodologies over the years, and actually I've had a chance to collaborate with Making Sense at 2 different jobs where we would use Making Sense as a way to augment our team and collaborate with some of the talented developers and UX designers on the Making Sense team. So really excited to be here and meet everybody and just be able to share a little bit about what I've learned over the years.
All right, thank you. I'm talking about your background and your career. When do you realize that UX was your vocation, your passion, your career?
So I just learned Ben grew up in Berkeley, which is so cool, which is where I went to college. And I have this distinct memory when I was about 21 of sitting at one of the cafes in South Berkeley and talking to my boyfriend about what our futures were going to be. And I remember telling him that I think I'm going to have a job that doesn't exist right now because I like computers, and I was a computer science minor and a psychology, or actually cognitive science major at Berkeley, and I had no idea what I was going to do with that combination, because back in the day there was sort of a design field, user interface design, but it was really early, and then there were sort of human factors people that were doing more ergonomics. And so I said, I don't know what it's going to be called, but I'm just going to focus on making technology less frustrating and annoying for people, because it needs to be more intuitive. It's ridiculous. And unfortunately, I still have a job doing that work. We haven't fixed it yet, and it's been almost, I think, over 20 years since that day. But I always knew that's what I was going to do. That's always been my passion.
That's great. I started my career before UX was, even a term, and I was really lucky to just work for a software company that, back in a time when a mom and pop could release a software that could become an industry standard software in the world, and I just started out in quality assurance testing because I was an audio engineer. I was a musician in college, and I knew how to use the software. And so they hired me just to use it and break it and tell them it was broken. And one day I went to them and I said, I think you need a product manager. And they said, well, what's that? And so I wrote my job description of what a product manager is. and they liked it. They said, this is probably what we need. The founder was an engineer, and he had designed and built the whole thing as a college project, and it's become, a worldwide hit. So we are going into a murky future of where this product could go, and I needed someone who could really look out there and figure out how, where this thing was going. And what was interesting is that at first, my first instinct was, well, maybe I should go talk to our customers and go observe their workflows. I mean, it was very self-serving because that meant going to studios of famous musicians. I got to go to EA and LucasArts and see how their workflows of their video game audio editors, classical music editors, all sorts of people. So for me, it was, getting to learn from these amazing people about their workflows. Some of them were using decades-old computers because they still use software that was still useful to them. So anyway, the point being that the next step I thought, well, wireframing might be an easier way to communicate what I'm learning than just writing these long documents that people need to make. So that's really how I fell into UX. I started wireframing, which led me to designing. And what I really fell in love with was this aspect of building, that we could, with a group of people, that you could work together to build something that could go out into the world, that people would use it and it would impact their lives, that it would make their lives easier. And the more I understood about the workflows, the better I could do for them. These people were so used to salespeople coming to them and trying to push software, and they were so relieved when I went there and asked them, well, how do you work and how can we make this software better for you? And that's what I really fell in love with.
All right, that's amazing. It's all about passion, right? Yeah. So you both have successful careers. You've been doing this for so long. In your opinion, which are the most important skills that help you out being where you are today?
Should I go first this time?
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably obvious for everyone in the room, but curiosity is the most important skill. And it's curiosity about your users, but also curiosity about the people you work with and what makes them tick. And it's also curiosity about the tools you use, and just this learning mentality, right? The world is moving so fast, and it's just so important to stay curious. I learn more from the young designers on my team than almost anyone else, of just seeing their passion and their, just wanting to break all the rules and just find the right tools. So just keeping that curiosity is so important. The other side, the skill that I value the most is really the ability to move between divergent and convergent thinking. So being able to go really wide and push yourself to just come with more ideas and just keep pushing yourself to go wider and wider. But just as important is the ability to how do you make the selection of what the best solution is? How do you converge on the right solution and be able to make that, what are the lenses you use and the principles you follow to be able to make the right decision to move forward with something you have the most confidence in?
I love that. I know. I think convergent, divergent thinking, we do a lot of design thinking at Autodesk, a lot of design thinking training and practice in the company. We actually try to get everyone, not just designers or UX folks, to learn how to do design thinking, which is basically, in a nutshell, is the ability to do divergent thinking and go really creative and broad, and then be able to converge back with the team and have clear alignment and prioritization and focus on what you're going to work on. We partner with an institute called the Luma Institute to train that to everyone in the company, because it's such a critical skill these days. I mean, everything is changing so fast that it's not about learning, one hard skill, one technology, one research method, and sort of sticking with it. It's really about being able to be on your feet and continually ready to be curious and learn what the next thing is, and sort of demonstrate that adaptability, that flexibility. And the other really critical skill, there are lots, but I would say for us it's also collaboration. There's no room anymore for folks to be sort of the sole intellectual. Sometimes researchers especially want to be sort of these independent, ethnographer and sort of study the world or a situation and then come up with a beautiful theory about what's going on. And it doesn't work. That mentality unfortunately fails at organizations these days, because we are moving so fast that we have to be constantly collaborating with our stakeholders, our design stakeholders, our business stakeholders, our tech. And if we don't bring them on the journey with us along the way, even doing the research, but especially understanding it, synthesizing it, identifying what the next steps are, then we'll be irrelevant. So the ability to collaborate with people who probably speak a different language than you, perhaps business or technology, the ability to sort of bridge between disciplines and work well with others is probably the most critical skill for success nowadays for us.
All right, thank you. Let's jump into more in-depth questions about the user experience field. And one of the topics I want to talk to you is about user-centered design culture. That is something that we push every day in our roles, and sometimes making design a priority in the organization is something hard for us. How do you see that happening in your companies?
Well, I'm super lucky to work at a company where design is just really at the core of, has always been at the core of the company's culture. That doesn't mean that it's easy, but it does mean that it's something that comes from the very top. So very early on into its history, they really embraced design thinking and actually developed their own framework around design thinking. And one of the best parts of that is that it's actually part of every employee's onboarding. So everybody that gets, even if you're, a support person or anyone, everybody gets trained on what we have a few different types of methodologies around design thinking and the way you collaborate and work together to actually bring new ideas to life. And that's really helped the company continue to innovate over a really long period of time. And that's something that Intuit's really known for, is that it never sits on a success, and it's always looking out into the future and figuring out what else could be done and how we can continue to really live that design culture out loud.
Yeah, I totally second that. And I have had researchers on my team who have come from Intuit who are fantastic. It is really, I agree. They get really well trained in the methods that we need to use on a day-to-day basis. So I think that I would say two things. One way to bring the culture, if you start at a company that doesn't have a strong design culture and you want to sort of create or start to engender that, one thing that we have learned that adds a lot of value is to bring your some design thinking skills, like some workshopping, facilitation, and offer to do it for others at the company or for the team that you're working with. So I'm one of the internal Autodesk design thinking instructors now. I've gone through sort of a certification program, and what that means is I'm on a sort of facilitation bench, and so we will go around to different groups in the company, and they don't really realize that they're being trained in design thinking and in our culture, but we walk them through exercises where they'll have a problem to solve, and we'll walk them through divergent exercises and then convergent thinking and sort of making, we'll do sort of thumbnail sketching or storyboarding with them and creating concepts. And through that, by being hands-on and experiencing it themselves, they get a real appreciation for what design is. Because design is not the product, really. It's the process that we use to get there, right? It's the iteration and the learning and the exploration of the space and understanding the problem. And so we're teaching it by doing, by sort of offering up our skills to help with other types of problems. And I've led workshops on everything from a finance team that's trying to do a retrospective for the year, like what, for planning for the following year, to really strange topics that are only in Autodesk, like micro factories of the future. I have no idea what that was about, but I said, I'll do it. I'll help you guys figure out how we can do. It's configurable micro factories of the future. Okay. Bring your curiosity and sort of volunteer to help out in sometimes small ways. Just to start getting people to experience the value of that type of thinking. And the other one I'll just say quickly is we try to democratize research at Autodesk and enable not just researchers to do it, but really open it up certain points in the year, certain events where we let anyone do research themselves and also sort of get their hands dirty there. So I'm getting ready right now, and in 2 weeks we have our big annual conference in Las Vegas. And this is the big program where we really democratize research across the company. We have over 400 people, which I can hardly believe right now, who are going to be running research at our conference in a couple weeks, running 95 different studies. And it's everyone from, it's product teams, it's product managers and designers, of course, and then it's some engineers, and then we actually have our legal department who's running a study. And so everyone's invited, and by making that, by opening it up and making it something that everyone gets to participate in, it really changes, it really, I feel like it sort of infects the culture with this natural empathy and desire for more customer exposure and more customer input. So that's a program, I could talk to you about it if you want later on. We've developed over many years. It started out very small, it grew organically, so it doesn't have to be a big program that you put on, but ways to get your team involved has been really, really impactful for us.
Hello.
Hello, so welcome. So we have Tianyu Wu here. Tianyu is a product designer. She worked for companies like Amazon and Spotify, so please welcome her. So would you please do a brief introduction about yourself, your background? And
Sure. So actually, I just moved here from New York 2 months ago. Actually. So I was switching job. Before I was working at Spotify, and in New York I was working for a consulting company as well. But I was actually coming from like computer science and industrial design background when I was in school. And back then, I got opportunity first when I was going to a company called Alibaba. Before that, they were super small, and they just coming from another company called Taobao. So I was getting intern there. I really liked about it, and I was actually doing Excel sheet. I was doing like operation Excel sheet thing. So and afterwards, I was wanting to explore more about digital, and I actually moved to New York. I went to a program called ITP, which is more like MIT Media Lab-ish thing, like new media, computer science, and art together. So, and we started to developing more in more like product design and product itself. So, yeah, so that's a brief intro, and yeah, just moved to Bay Area. And you guys are lucky because here you get a lot of these meetups, which not happen that much in New York. They're all finance. So, yeah, so that's a brief intro.
All right, thank you. So going back to you, Melissa, you have an amazing career where you went from being a user research, which is more a hands-on role. Then you become you became a head of research and then a director. What did you learn in that?
Long way. Yeah. I feel like I've been really lucky to be able to try out different roles. That's one of the benefits of a larger company is you can move around. You don't actually have to quit your company. You can sort of jump around and try out different departments and groups. I was a hands-on researcher for the first 5 years, and then I started to manage a team. And then I did that for about 4 years. I grew our team. I think from 2 researchers to 6. And then I got this really awesome opportunity. We had just hired a VP of design, and they were looking for someone to be the head of research practice across Autodesk. And it was kind of a scary role because no one had had it before. And it wasn't totally clear what it was going to be, except that it was going to be a way to connect all the researchers that were kind of spread around the company together into a community and help them share and share best practices and sort of practice and gain, level up our practice. And so I said, okay, I'll try it. So I sort of took this role. I left my team, so then I became, again, an individual contributor. But then quickly I sort of adopted a design team that needed a manager, which happens. Again, at large organizations, you think you have one role, and then 3 months later, it's something totally different. But as head of research practice, I got to experience sort of the process of community building. And that's it's a hard but a really rewarding role at a company, because many people are seeking communities of practice, especially, and I got to sort of bring people together. And one thing that my manager at the time taught me, Maria Giudice, who is our VP of Design, who's an excellent, she's a UX leader. She taught me that to build a community and to have a healthy practice, you need to think very inclusively. You need to not draw hard boundaries on what people are able to do based on their role or sort of what box they're in officially at an organization, because people are not going to fit in those boxes neatly. every one of us has a set of valuable skills and passions that we bring. And so for research in particular, if you can tap into everyone at the company who's interested or passionate about connecting with customers, you're going to have 10 times the effect that you would if you just sort of brought researchers together, right? And so I would organize these research meetups, and I still do. Even though my job has changed, I still can't let that go because it's so fun. And then we do sort of these research summits, and I was amazed because the first time we did it, we got over 100 people raise their hand, even though we only had about 15 people with research in their title. And so I'll stop there on that one, but I guess what I've learned is that that was a real challenge in sort of leading by influence rather than authority, because I didn't manage any of those people, but I was able to organize task forces and get really interesting work done and bring people together who wanted to connect. You can lead in different ways in organizations. And so being a people manager is one, and then also just being a community builder is another powerful way to lead in an organization.
All right, the next one is for you, Yanyu. You have experience working on UX teams in some well-known companies like Amazon and Spotify. And we know that those companies have aggressive goals, very aggressive goals. How do you make sure that you tackle those business goals and the user needs, of course, while keeping everyone in your team engaged and motivated?
Spotify, speaking of those two companies, all the different companies, they are actually quite different in terms of how the ideas are going to come up. Some are really top down, some are more bottoms up. What I found interesting when I was working there is, I think one of the biggest things is within the company, you need to always have a narrative communicating your goal in a different way. So repetitively. So like in design org, you have your own narrative. In a larger product org, you have the different narrative, but they all tell the same story. But they want to reinforce the narrative in all the different ways. So people with a different background, if engineers or product people, they will have a shared understanding. But I think telling a story, not just designer from product org, that's one way they usually do. The second thing would be speaking on the user needs. So we always see design at a different org, engineer at a different org, or product at a different org. Companies have tried out, like when I was there or in other companies, they try different ways to bring those functions together. Like to some point, they have one org. The org is combined of design, data science, and researcher. They are the same team. They don't separate it in the different teams. I know majority of companies, they may have a researcher under the design org, but data science and research together, which is another function, another thing they tried. The reason why they tried it because they figured out the qualitative research and quant data, they actually serve the similar goal, but they want to bring people together. So that's the way the organization is trying out different ways. But for smaller companies, I think I've also worked for some startups. For me, for the user needs, design was usually come a bit later if they've already figured out what the product is and they want design to first just try to make it better or make it look better, which sometimes make it very reactive. So I would say, yeah, so for smaller ones, it was more about set the vision for the next few years at the design perspective and bring the user needs up front. But I think from what I'm seeing so far, when we see user needs, first of all, you have to make sure trying to understand your user is a task. It's a similar priority than building a feature. If you can put this as a task, as the same priority of you want to implement the thing that works, put that in a roadmap that will be making that work. So what I was saying is putting the user needs in the same backlog or in the same track with all the engineering requests will be some practice I see that's useful.
All right, and I'm wondering, Ben, how do you see that happening? And What are your strategies when you have to take care of business goals, user needs, and keeping the team engaged and motivated?
Yeah, so one thing that I always emphasize is the fact that design has a seat at the table now, and so we don't want to just be there. We want to really be effective. So we actually, need to really understand and value those business goals and understand what they mean to the company. But then also help the company understand how design maps to those goals and helps us reach those goals. One of the things that we do at Intuit is we have a whole system called Follow Me Home, which sounds creepier than it really is. And what that is at any time there's a whole system in place for you to be able to identify a type of a user that you want to learn more about and actually go to that person's home and observe how they do their works. Most of our customers are small businesses and self-employed and people that are not a big enterprise, right? There's someone that has a life, and we really want to understand how our product integrates into their life. So by being able to ground everybody in that, the next thing we do is we also encourage everybody to create what we call a LOFA, a leap of faith assumption. What have we learned, and what kind of assumptions do we think we can make about the future for our product based on what we learn? And that's where we can start actually mapping those assumptions to the business goals and metrics that we're trying to reach to be successful as a company. And that's where the blend of where the business is going and where we think the product can go really start to come together. And then what we do is we then think, well, what are the experiments we can run to incrementally move towards that leap of faith that we think is possible, and how can we learn along the way as we move towards that? And as we learn that, that future vision where we thought we were going might change, but it's because we're learning along the way, and we're always pushing ourselves to imagine a future instead of just being reactionary, as you just said, to kind of the current needs of the product.
Right, awesome. Can you, as a product designer, you generate new ideas, you identify growth opportunities, and create new business solutions. How do you combine UX design with product management techniques toward those goals?
So essentially the design and PM, because I actually did PM before, so the biggest overlap is as both of the group, you have to understand the user. And for both groups, you need to understand a bit more about technical stuff as well. The differences would be the goal of the PM, they are balancing. They are balancing the engineer, design, and other requests. And another way of PM was to is they are not, in many places, PM is owning the product. But in a lot of different ways, PMing is owning a process. They don't determine the product. They encourage a team member to design a system which operate better. Which is a thing I think PM is think a lot more so than designer. Designer think more about how you can make the craft better. So how to work with PM? If you understand the user needs, you are speaking the same language, you naturally work together. PM and design is usually two type of group that works most closely together. So if you are a designer trying to work better with PM, trying to understand what he or she is coming from, and what problem they are trying to solve from, and also maybe try to think about what they are thinking about. PMing is trying to make sure things that get delivered, they are creating value, right? So as a designer, you are thinking about how you can make a perfect thing or beautiful thing, but it's a journey when you think about that in the product development process. Everything is changing. So what do you want to learn in each step? And maybe you can do a bit of negotiation of saying, I don't need that button being perfect, but let's test it out, and that's aiming for the next round of release. So thinking about that as a mindset will be helpful to work with the PM.
I totally agree, and with research too, I think the thing I've learned is how important it is to have a close partnership with the PMs, because if they see you as a partner, then they'll come to you early on to help understand the user, and if they don't understand what you bring, sometimes they can be in conflict with what you're trying to do. If you're coming in too late or you're not working with them, they can see you almost as a challenger right into the roadmap, they're often trying to get the team to really focus on a problem and solve it well. And if you're sort of coming in sideways and not aligned, it can go not well. One of my big failures early on was we did this big research project without talking to any product managers about it. Before I knew this lesson, how important it was, we were really passionate about understanding how students were perceiving AutoCAD and where they were struggling and what we needed to do to make the student experience better. That early onboarding, especially in classes. And so we did the project. We had a really great set of findings, and we presented it to our whole PM team, and we were expecting them to applaud and tell us all the things they were going to do with the stuff we found, and it was just silence, at the end. And we were totally, so we said, okay, well, we'll just make a matrix of all of the things we found and prioritize them for you, and then you can go and fix all this stuff. And we gave them the matrix, and it sort of sat there and it didn't do anything. And because their roadmap was full, they had a year's worth of features that they had the team focused on that they needed to do, and they had committed, and the engineering teams were underway working on them. And so even as insightful and as beautiful as your research can be, it can't usually sort of turn a release, so quickly. But if you're aligned in the beginning with what your PMs are trying to solve, it can be like magic, right? It can be a beautiful partnership where you're able to bring to life the real problems or get into the latent needs that the customers are not telling you, but that you're observing. So I want to share that anecdote.
That's perfect. So you all have plenty of experience managing teams, design teams, and you face challenge every day coming from a lot of different places, right? Which is the biggest learning on that, and how do you constantly spark innovations in your team?
I can start. I think part of it is kind of what we talked about earlier about how do we build in a process for helping them think big and think about flows and think big picture about how is someone going to really use this and what are the opportunities for innovation, and also really leading by example of how do you give them the tools for brainstorming, facilitating kind of innovation strategy type workshops so that you really make that space to think about where things can go. The other part of it for me is really about just bringing energy and passion for design. So I'm always trying to find ways to just keep the conversation about design active. In my last job, we talked a lot about taste, and it was a very controversial term because people said, we don't want to be judged on our taste, but there's something there, right? When you see a great design, you just feel it, right? And it's not hard to describe, it's hard to quantify what it is, you just feels great, right? So we did a ton of stuff to just keep that conversation alive. For example, we would do weekly app competitions, like Flinto against Principal, and everybody would make a prototype that week, and then Friday we'd all get drinks, and then we would split the room inside. Everybody that liked Principal more go to that side, and Flinto that side, and then we would argue about what was better, and it just kept us kind of thinking about it, and also just constantly sharing good design and things that you're inspired by, and just making sure that conversation about this very abstract idea of what good design is just alive within the team.
Melissa, how is it your case?
We've actually been talking a lot lately at Autodesk about psychological safety. How many of you have heard of that? Who have heard that term, psychological safety? Some. So Google sort of made it famous, and the woman, I'm going to forget her name, the researcher, Amy something, sort of identified it. But it's the characteristics of a team that enables people to feel safe, to experiment, and to innovate, or to say things that without fear of being criticized or for being stupid. And what Google found was the best performing teams. It's not that they have the smartest people. It's not that they are all co-located in the same office. It's actually that they have developed this psychological safety where they can work together and they support each other and they let ideas, come. Because without that safety, it's really hard to innovate. New ideas. Someone said new ideas are they're like these very delicate eggs that will crack, and you can destroy them so easily. And so these any sort of new ideas, you have to take such care of them, incubate them, and let them exist for a little while, explore them if you want to be able to innovate. And so we've been working on understanding and on sort of assessing our teams, exploring what we can do to build better psychological safety in our teams. One thing we do with all the designers is we teach them a critique method. It's a healthy critique method, so that people can be very comfortable and free to bring a new idea and to bring it to a critique and not feel like they're going to get personally attacked or insulted. And so it just has a structure, and it has a way that we've trained everyone to do, and we encourage weekly critiques, weekly crits on all teams. That creates a very healthy, I think, way for that innovation to happen.
And Kenny, how is it in your case? How do you constantly spark innovation?
Yeah, I haven't personally been a person manager yet, but when we are doing individual contributor, we have to lead the project. So very similar to what you said, I think people have different personality. One of the things we figure out is when there's a brainstorming session coming up, there's usually sticky notes, post-it notes. People have to come to the stage, talk about what their idea is. Those situations will always make someone is a bit introverted and shy, right? So just to account for, it's like how you can make people feel like there is a different channel they can express their ideas, and not just always coming to the stage talk about it, but maybe there's a group chat they can talk about their ideas. So I think very similar to what you talk about, feeling free and have a place that makes you feel be bold will be something that's really helpful.
To build on that, one thing I'll add is that one thing I'm really passionate about is how to empower young designers to have a voice within an organization, because there's just so much passion and also kind of a disregard for what's been from young designers, but they also most often haven't found their voice yet, and it takes years to really be able to build that muscle of being able to build consensus around your ideas. So one thing that facilitation really does is it evens the playing field, right? So the louder voices now get evened out with the people who maybe don't have those same skills. So by facilitating, by creating an activity around the ideation and creation of ideas, it then brings new voices to the fold, and I'm always pushing young designers to find the ways that they can really shine and build that confidence to just bring wild ideas and just that passion into the room that the young designers have.
Yeah, it's true. Another topic that I want to go through with you tonight is how to incorporate, talking about data and processes and the difference between startups and big companies. Probably in the audience tonight we have some people that are working on startups or actually they own startups. So and that we know that data is important to validate ideas and to build things. So how do you incorporate data in your process?
I'd love to tell about something I'm excited about that we're doing this year is, and this came down, I was very happy, it came down from one of our C staff, our chief digital officer, wanted a metric for customer satisfaction on all of our digital properties. So that's my world these days is Autodesk.com and Autodesk, our knowledge network and learning and our account portal. And So we had to step back and say, okay, how are we going to do that? So we put surveys, we put intercept surveys in place on all of our major properties that when you visit Autodesk.com, after a while it says, would you like to give us feedback, like every other website that you go to nowadays. But we actually use that in a very, it's taken very seriously because it came from our executives, and we made it a corporate goal that we would improve customer ease on our digital platform by a certain percentage point by the end of the year. And we actually focused on a few areas. We looked at our data and we saw where our customer effort was too high, especially high, and where we thought we could move the needle, and we focused on those. And that metric has given teams incredible focus. Because I think one thing we struggle with in large organizations is that everyone's sort of down in their silo. You know, they kind of know their piece that they're working on. It's hard to step back and get kind of a whole picture of what the customer experience is, or what everyone else is working on, and how your piece sort of contributes. But when you have this, when you can put in place a very customer-centered metric, that's really just based on the perception that you're getting every day of how customers are doing. We kind of formulated really simple questions. Why did you come to visit? Did you get what you needed? How easy was it on a scale? And how can we improve? Now we're tracking that, and it's forced teams actually to step back and look at, everyone's kind of freaking out. Because they're like, how are we going to make it easier? I don't know. Who owns that? I don't know. Who's doing this over here? This seems to be the problem, you know? But they're freaking out in a good way because they're asking more questions, and now they're sort of breaking through silos and fixing problems that have been there for a long time, actually. So I'm super excited about that. I think metrics can be incredibly powerful for large organizations, especially when they're very customer-centric.
Yeah, to build on that, I think the best metric is something that tells a story about your customer and something that you can actually act on. And to kind of build on what you were saying, we have some big metrics that the whole company can really, a North Star we can all move towards. But then each of our groups then have metrics to really represent the impact that they're trying to have at any given time and can really move towards. And one of the things we do also is that anytime a new experiment or a new feature is launched, it's always posted to a Slack channel. And it also includes links to the dashboards that relate to that specific experiment. Excuse me. So there's the big numbers that everybody tracks that feel a little separate from your work, but this allows you to say, here's what we're doing, here's what we're trying to learn, and here's where you can track it. Here's the narrative, and then here's the actual numbers, which is great. And then the thing we're freaking out about, I would say, is that with AI and machine learning, that's completely changing the way that we look at how people interact with our app, right? For a long time, we were looking at how do we measure active use? How do we measure, we want people in our app using it every day, right? Well, now that's flipped on its head, right? We're introducing, these ways to do the job for our customers. We're able to learn from what they do, and our goal is that they don't touch the app as often. That we're able to do that work for them, and success now means they're not using the app. So then what do we try to measure? Well, now we can start drilling down into measuring things like specific task completion. Well, when they do enter into the app, when it's task time or these different scenarios, are they able to actually complete those tasks? And then hopefully we can also be measuring how they feel, when they complete those tasks. And then also, another thing we're wrestling with right now is, well, we want to be able to provide more personalized recommendations, right? So then we can start measuring how often people interact with those. So we're now able to switch gears a little bit and think about, we're redefining what active use really means for us, and redefining what the metrics, what success means for our customers and how we should be measuring it.
So what I remember is, so there is one very important metric called NPS, Net Promoter Score. It's like how you recommend this product to other people, both being used in consumer product or enterprise product. So maybe think about
product, right? If like Spotify free or Spotify paid, the reason why, like think about the strategy for all the different apps or digital service, your circle back. It's like to some point they figure out the NPS for free product is super low, and the NPS for paid is super high. People are happy about the paid product, and the free isn't that great. So how we can, if there are issues with this different product, so then they come back saying we need to fixing those products, and why people are not recommending this is because there are A, B, C, D, E. There are a few different reasons for that. So so from what I see, NPS is usually one of the really helpful metrics for track a lot of things, which can drive many strategies. And you narrow it down, there will be more proxy metrics like monthly active user, daily active user, which is good for a high level, but you can't really tell why it's going up or why it's going down. Circle back, you still have to look into behavioral metrics, like how many people click on that. So usually when a team is measuring it, they measuring it more like monthly active user, how much transaction they're making. So what a designer or you are really need to advocating for is to having the metrics to understand why this is moving up and log into more behavioral metrics. I remember when I was working on the teams, I was writing the log name for different metrics I want to have, and I'm writing the name for the engineer and the name in the Google Analytics and see here's the list of metrics we have to track, and here's the name you need to put the label in. So really need to be very savvy about it, and it could help a lot for you to understand many things. And knowing how this is getting calculated, like what's the definition of monthly active user? Is actually means someone visited it, or is actually means someone clicked on something? So learning those data and how they calculate those stuff is really, really helpful for the career as well. And always asking the question of the data. So.
I want to add one more thing. I think there's so much more data coming in now, right? It's easy to get overwhelmed with the amount of things you can measure and to get paralyzed in analysis, especially as a research team. And so, one thing that I would say is don't, you aren't ever going to have a complete, don't get paralyzed. Be careful about that, because what I find too is when you get data back, usually it just leads to more questions, right? You go back and say, well, let's ask this, and you can start to just dig forever. And so we really push our teams to actively, constantly be prototyping and mocking things up so that they're not stuck in this sort of analysis paralysis. Because mock-ups are a great way to facilitate wireframes, are a great way to facilitate conversations about where we should go and not just be stuck in sort of this understanding mode. And the last thing I'll say is that I've learned is sometimes stakeholders will use data as a weapon in various ways, but we'll ask for more and more data, and sometimes it means they don't want to work on a problem. They'll just keep asking you to kind of prove that it's important or to give more data on the details because it's not clear enough yet. And sometimes the best thing you can do in those cases is to actually just set up an hour and have the team go through the experience that you're trying to improve. Have them go through it themselves. One of my favorite researchers was from Intuit, and we set this up in our office once, a new mobile app that we had created to manage drawings. And we were having a lot of trouble getting engineering to make fixes. And instead of spending weeks collecting all the data, we just did a simulation where we had them try to use the product the way our customers are supposed to. And they were so incredibly frustrated. They couldn't believe the performance problems. They didn't understand why things weren't instantly, updating for client to server. It was all that they needed. And then they had, and then they were going to solve the problem. So sometimes data is not the answer.
I want to emphasize what you said about not being paralyzed.
Yeah.
I was lucky to have a mentor early in my career who said to me, "You're not going to know the right questions to ask until you start designing."
Yeah. Yeah.
So, he hated it when we'd say, we need to do more research and discovery. He was like, first day of the project, you gotta put pen to paper, you gotta start designing. That's how you're gonna understand the problem you're trying to solve. And then when you're talking to customers, you're talking to people, you're gonna be in it, you're gonna be immersed in the problem you're trying to solve. And also, to be honest, great ideas come without data, right? You can't hold yourself back from designing just because you don't feel like you have all the pieces you need. There's nothing beats just getting into your imagination and just going for it.
Nice, thank you. I can keep talking about this all night, but we are running out of time, so I'm going to do my final questions, and then we are going to open the link for you to ask questions soon. My final question is about failure. We are creators and designers, we create things, and sometimes that implies that we have to fail. How do you embrace failure, and how did it impact your career growth?
I can start. There's one failure in my career that really just kind of set my path very early on. It just kind of woke me up in a lot of ways. One of my biggest prides early in my career was we found this great product idea. We realized that all these people out there that were doing audio editing for video editing, right? So at least back then, there was all this noise and all these cameras. The camera audio was awful, right? And so we had this amazing DSP engineer who just built these algorithms to be able to identify that noise and be able to extract it from the audio signal. Pretty amazing stuff. And up to this point, there was no product out there. It was really expensive to do noise reduction. And we were able to go with a product. It was a one-click solution. You just clicked a button and it removed the noise from the audio. It was a huge hit. It was awesome. And as we got this out into the market, we were so proud of ourselves. And all these people were like, this is great. But all these professionals were like, well, can you unpack it for us? Can you now, this is such powerful technology. Can you give us more control? We want more than one click. And we were like, of course. We're the experts at this. So we then went through years of developing this really complex pro version of it, right? And we released it out into the world, and it was a complete flop. And it was just because we kind of got caught up in ourselves, right, of what we thought we were experts at. And it was such a wake-up call to me that we needed to have incrementally gotten there, right? We needed to have worked our way to that big idea, that big solution, that big expensive product, instead of just trying to kind of be full of ourselves and reveal it to the world. And so that really set me on my path of experimentation over the years, and just realizing that I never know enough. I've always got to be just trying new ideas, and be willing to fail, being willing to put things out there that people don't like. User testing is the most humbling thing in the world, but it's so valuable. It's so amazing to be able to see the things that you didn't see, and just kind of, once again, have those little wake-up moments where you're like, oh, right, that is silly. I should probably do something else there. So can't emphasize enough that just putting yourself out there and being willing to fail.
And I already shared my failure. Do you want to share?
Okay. Yeah. So I remember a couple of years ago, there was an app called Yo. Y-O. How do you guys remember? Oh, okay. Maybe. At least 6 or 7 years ago. So it's a very popular app. It's like Snapchat, like some sort of like hit back then, and we were trying to, different people are trying to do a different version of that app. So it's like right now, if you see more popular things coming up, they just want to make another version of that, make another use case. And we make another version of Yo, and we did another version which we asked people to go together to eat in the same restaurant, which is the same idea. And then we made that within the weekend, and we posted it on the App Store, and no one's downloading it. So I think back then, or even when I was earlier in my career, I was always more catching up with new stuff. Like whatever is popular, I'm not catching up or trying out new versions. But when I think more, if you don't, you always think about there will be another opportunity waiting for you if you follow it. But what's really gonna make work is not following new things, it's more like you understand what you're trying to do and you spend time to carve out what your passion is. Not following all this trend, because all the trend is gonna fade away. Like right now the app is, no one's caring about it. They get millions of fundings, but no one's still heard about it. It's like, I know that, some of you knows it, but no one's heard about it anymore. So always keep just one thing that's you really think important, that's working, and don't be distracted by all the new trends coming out. I don't know, that's my feeling.
That's great.
Yeah, that's great advice. Embracing failure is another theme that we've been talking a lot about at Autodesk in our culture, because it's another way that innovation can really get stifled in a large organization. Because people just don't take bold risk-taking, right? And that requires a lot of failure. And we all can get comfortable in our spots in our company where we don't fail that often. And it gets really uncomfortable. And so we've been doing even trainings on, praiseworthy failure. Praiseworthy failure is when you experimented and you failed and you learned something and we can share that learning, versus real failure is just where you ignore, you go up and do something after you know that's not what we're supposed to do. That's usually not how people are failing. So it's something that I think large organizations are trying to get better at, actually, is failing more often.
All right, so thank you very much again for spending some time with us and sharing your experience. It was very inspiring. So thank you. So now we have some time for some questions. So now it's your time. Who do we want to start? You?
Hi. So we were talking about failures, and I like to know what the thing you're most proud of during your career.
I think for me, it's all the people I've had the joy of working with on my team. I've had a lot of researchers who come into my team and they go and sort of grow and go to different places and grow and lead teams themselves or find other directions in their career. But it really is, I find it now extremely rewarding and humbling to have so many people coming into research and having a chance to have some, a little bit of impact on their lives.
I think for me, I like when the product works. It's not fail. So that's also the nice thing about if you manage people, maybe you work care more about the people's success, but for me, I care about the product. So so I think I'm pretty happy about most previous product worked and it's being used by people, and maybe a lot of people. So so that's one thing I think I'm proud of.
Yeah, and I would say a little bit. I'll give both of those a little bit of touch because some of the moments I'm the most proud of in my career is when I've been able to take the vision of a team and be able to articulate it in a way that gets everybody really excited about it. Because I was a consultant for many years, right? So that literally was my job, was to go in, find new ideas, new ways of doing things, but bring it back to a very skeptic audience and being able to really get them excited about it. So I'm most proud of those times when I was able to bring some design solution to a table and that everybody said, yes, that's what we should do. And then on the other side though, as a manager, just seeing, empowering designers to find their voice. That's my biggest thing is, we all get schooled to have the skills and all these other things, but finding your voice and being able to really be able to articulate your ideas and be able to get that buy-in and then kind of advance and start broadening out from just my one little design to a larger system to then influencing a larger group of people. It's really amazing to see, and it's also something that I'm proud of being able to do incrementally throughout my own career.
Thank you so much, all of you. So a lot of people in the audience are either looking for jobs or they'll be looking for jobs soon. So I'm wondering, when we do secure that first job, like what should we focus on in terms of like building the foundation of our career if we want to be designers for like a long time?
Want me to go first this time?
Yeah, I can go first. I think what we have for, depending on what type of designer you want to be, someone who is really, they want to dive deep into UI, they become a really great UI designer moving forward. I saw many of them, they start to want to explore more at a very beginning, and they try to see, okay, if I can do some research, or if I can do a bit more PM maybe sometime, or maybe I'm going to dig into data, or if I'm interested in prototyping. Just test out yourself, experiment with yourself as early as possible. But because you don't want to be in a career for 5 years, and then you realize, okay, I want a different direction, which it's too late to experiment. So definitely experiment. Don't think about that you need to have a super amazing career growth, which will limit your personal growth as well. And think about what you're really interested in, and yeah, always try out new things and try out different disciplines. Not just design, other stuff as well. And I always feel like some of the talented designers I know, they never come from design background. They come from other career. They either jump icon into other things. And so I think that's, for me, I'm that type of person. I want to try new things first. But by the end of the day, you have to develop what you're really good at. But you don't have to define it if you don't know about it. So.
Yeah, that's my same exact answer. Is, you know, especially when UX kind of got hot, I don't know, a few years ago, a lot of people would come to me and say, there's so much money in it, there's such a great market, like, should I get into it? And my advice to them was to slow down and just try on a lot of hats, because you want to find what you're passionate about. UX is such a broad subject, and there's so many different areas you can kind of specialize in, but you don't know if you're really passionate about it until you try it, until you run into big challenges with it, where you have to collaborate with different teams. So whatever you can do to get a breadth of experience is super helpful. The other piece I would say, though, is, you know, when you land your first kind of role, you're going to have a specific thing you're going to execute on, which is great. But then just try to find those cross-discipline mentors, right? People from different types of things, so that you can actually see what their work is and learn from them. So even if you need to focus in on a specific area, you can still get that influence from different types of disciplines.
I think that's all true, and you know, come with humility and be a good collaborator, and don't worry if the job that, you know, if they're giving you, don't demand, you know, only design work that's like a certain, you know, level or certain project status or something like that. That will really that will not go well if you have that sort of attitude. But just go in and with a hunger to learn and sort of throw yourself in, and just like Tianya said, see what you like, try things out. I think that people can sometimes get the impression with, especially, you know, I keep doing at larger companies, but I've been in large companies for so long, that things are very buttoned up and that your role is just your role. You should only do sort of what your job description says. But in truth, things are changing so fast. We're all trying to figure it out. And I love it. I absolutely love it when someone will come in and just raise their hand to help with something, even if it's not in their job description. And that's such a great way to gain a skill, to build rapport, to get in, you know, the favor of another leader, to build your network. And it's needed. I mean, just make sure you're doing your work, get your deliverables in, and then raise your hand and volunteer to help. It's a great way to
Thank you again for your time tonight. Melissa mentioned today that like, for example, at Autodesk and also in other companies, they do try to train their employees, I mean communities, in design thinking. And also believe that, and it's also proven that it's very, it brings success and brings productivity in even non-design teams, right? And being just graduated from a master's in design thinking, we tried that as well with other let's say programs at school, like MBA students, and with different like cross-disciplinary teams and hackathons. But it was so difficult sometimes. Like some people who are, especially non-designers, non-researchers, who haven't been exposed too much to design thinking or the value it brings into their projects, even MBA people who wanted to be product managers, which is completely irrelevant, still sometimes don't appreciate and they don't pay attention. So it's so hard to get, reach to them, kind of tap into their interest and attention. So how do you actually tackle that problem? How do you achieve in that case?
I'm glad you asked that, because I don't mean to make it sound like it's easy. It's not easy, right? It's not easy. It's not easy to get. A lot of people resist picking up a Sharpie and a Post-it if you put it in front of them, right? And I think that, and I've seen this with, we will hire people coming with a design MBA, which is a fantastic combination of skills, but they expect to come in and run, week-long workshops doing pure design thinking, hardcore, getting everyone to clear their calendars to do that work, and it doesn't happen. And they're, it's frustrating. This is so, this is going to be so great if you guys just do this. And so, for us, it's always a journey. And actually, I think that every time someone new comes in the organization, a new leader comes in, you have to you warm them up to what this is and why it's valuable. We have a few design thinking methods that we sort of think of as our gateway drug to design thinking, that everyone gets value from. So simple retrospective, we do Rose Thorn Bud, it's a Luma Institute method with Sharpies, but it's no fuss. It takes 30 minutes, and it actually is incredibly effective in just getting quick feedback from a group, and you can sort of then affinity cluster. But it almost always goes well, and then it delivers value, and then you sort of go to the next step, and you do a little bit more and a little bit more. Some people will never embrace it. You'll always have your doubters or your the non-believers, and you have to accept that. But you have to keep trying. And I think, it's about matching sort of the appetite with what you offer, and then continue to being there to partner with them. That helps. You want to add?
Yeah, I was to add. I mean, this is as a consultant, was what I did the most, right? And digital transformation right now is a huge challenge. So many companies are trying to catch up, right? Digital has never been at the center of their product. And now they need it. They need some digital. They need some design. And so they would hire a consultant to come and help with them. I think the main thing was always about meeting them where they are and building trust. And it's really easy to just come and be like, I've got the solution, and it's called design thinking. And you just get in there, but really it's more about understanding what are the outcomes they're looking for. How do you incrementally start integrating some of the design thinking methodology into the process as you go, and build that trust, show them that you are focused on still the same outcomes that they're looking for, but that you're finding a way to get there. One other thing I'll mention is I love the YouTube and Instagram account of an agency in Berlin called AJ and Smart. Have you guys all heard of Sprint? I'm sure you've read the book Sprint, right? AJ and Smart, that's all they do. They just do sprints. And the founder is this young guy who's just super energetic and really entertaining. But what's really great about them is that they'll do all of these videos around kind of training around the sprint methodology. But what they embed a lot in there are all of these little tricks they have for fooling people into design thinking. For example, there's this one step along this sticky note exercise where then we have everybody read all of map all the sticky notes a certain way. And they're like, we get nothing out of this actually decide to just forces them to read all of the sticky notes. So it's like they have these really funny ways of like just kind of fooling people into the process. It's really entertaining, and you just have to have fun with it. You have to be willing to know that not everybody's kind of as passionate about it as we are, but as soon as you can start showing the value, then the enthusiasm grows.
I think school projects are always hard because there's no point of saying it's failed or it succeeds. It's all about making people happy sometimes. So I think in the organization, the opportunity you can make is when things broke, you know how to make it work. So one of my engineer friends made fun of it. He was saying, if you want to have more budget on this project, he will just like broke it one day, and people, it's broken. There's so many issues causing up by that. So then they were starting to realize the importance of that stuff, and they will put more budget on it, which is a similar thing for anything, to make people understand why things broke, and that's opportunity you can raise the design cost, possibly, but hopefully nothing broke. So that's my thoughts on that.
All right, so we have time for one more.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Guerrero, and I'm a design student. And I'm hearing a lot about collaboration. And when I started the program, I had my own idea of what collaboration looked like. And so I just thought that collaboration was like, okay, one person does one task, the other does another, and then the other does another, we all come together and we produce something. But as I'm learning is that everyone has a different idea of what collaboration is. And some people think that it's like, okay, you do one prototype, I do another, and then you do another, and we pick the best one. So my question is what does collaboration look like in the large workforce? Like at a company like Intuit and stuff.
Yeah, I can start. I mean, I think you actually already nailed it. It comes in a lot of flavors. And I think the main thing is just being open to it being different for every person. But then also, it is an opportunity for you to start forming what you think successful collaboration looks like. And you can start to facilitate that, right? So you can look at the types of projects you're working on. Well, who are the types of stakeholders that really need to be involved? What are the outputs that we're really looking for? What are some activities we could do as a group to really get there? And that's where the facilitation practice really comes into place, where you can now, you are now the one who's bringing better alignment between people. You're helping people think bigger and longer term. You're now starting to play a role in bringing people together. So that's one flavor of it. But collaboration is also, sharing on Slack. That's where a ton of collaboration happens. Right now we have this relatively new platform where all day we can reach out to each other and share ideas as they spring up in our heads. So I think, the main thing is just be open to everybody's different ideas, and there's probably going to be some nugget of value in each person's idea of what collaboration looks like.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I know, and collaboration is actually slow. It's slower than doing something yourself, or clearly, designating who's going to do A, who's going to do B, who's going to do C. It's messier. It's a lot of times more conflict, more conflict involved. But we know that the outcome is more is better generally. When I say I want to hire someone who's collaborative, I realize what I'm really saying is I want somebody who's going to have empathy for their stakeholders and not come in and feel like they're sort of us versus them mentality, like design versus business or versus engineering. I have to get my way as much as possible. Instead, they have an attitude of, I want to be on the team. I want the team to be successful. And I want my stakeholders to be successful. And I want to understand what success means to them. And I think that that's really the mentality that I'm thinking of. It's collaborative.
Yeah, I was just thinking about when the collaboration collapse is most of the time where each people take different pieces and they assume other people is doing their job and they're doing their job. And they don't know the whole picture. Because they don't feel like they're owning the whole thing, they're owning one piece. And they start to blame with each other if things not working well. Are these other people not doing their job? Am I not doing my job? So I think part of it is more about because since you're delegated to different agent, right? You need to have someone who is owning the whole thing, or you make everyone feel like they're owning the whole thing as well. So getting them to know what their piece is contributing the whole thing. Are they letting them know they are actually contributing the success? Letting them know if they fail on their piece, the whole thing will collapse. That will be helpful for everyone to knowing, and so they have an actual motivation of collaborating with the whole team as well. So yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Hi there. Well, thank you very much for coming. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you very much for the panel. Let's give them. We have some presents, some Argentinian wine for you to enjoy. Thank you. Okay, and remember to follow us on social media so you can know when we are organizing our next meetup. Thank you.
Thank you.